Good afternoon. It feels strange to say that, but for the next 2 weeks will be afternoon because this is the time where I'm in an intensive classes for the D men. And so I'm not going to not do Thriving Tuesdays moments of encouragement. Your moments will just come later in the day. Good afternoon again and welcome. Please let me know you are here. I see that there are those who are here. So please post and say hello so that I can say hello back to you. Good afternoon, my joy. Today we are going to talk about preparing to pivot. Uh, there are a lot of things that have changed, and if we allow ourselves to be stuck in those places where we were, then we are going to miss what's to come. And so life gives us a fluidity of change. And so we've got to have our feet on the ground, but so not so planted in the ground that we can't pivot when it's necessary. So that's what we're going to share on today, the importance of learning what it means to pivot, to prepare your life to pivot. Nothing stays the same. So, welcome to another broadcast of Thriving Tuesday Moments of Encouragement, hashtag veeencouraged. And today we're going to talk about the importance of preparing to pivot. There is a song written by, I think it's written by George Benson, and it's called Everything Must Change. Nothing stays the same. Everyone must change. Nothing stays the same. There are not many things in life we can be sure of. Except rain comes from the clouds and sun lights up the sky and hummingbirds fly. And then I would add, and I love the Lord. And the Lord is our constant. But those things are the things that we can kind of count on. But we found out even during pandemic that some of those things even get skewed when life changes. So we've got to learn the importance of fluidity in our lives. And that just means that we have to be, as I said earlier, just a few minutes ago, that we have to have our feet on the ground. But we can't be so planted that we cannot shift when we need to, cannot pivot. We've got to learn the importance of the pivot. If you've ever seen a basketball player who was looking for the person to pass to, it landed on the feet, may have caught the rebound, but had to learn what it meant to be fluid enough to pivot, to see who it was that they needed to be able to pass to in order to make the score. Well, we've got to live our lives the same way, that we've got to be planted, but be able to pivot so that as things come our way, as life changes, as we experience things, we are clear about being able to pivot, being able to take that turn that we need to go in the right direction, the direction toward the goal, the direction towards success, and not be stuck where we were. One of the things that we've had to share with the church is that we're not going back. So if you're planted where we were, you're going to miss where we're headed. And if that's, we've got to live our lives in such a way where God is able to show us what it is that we're going toward. 2 Peter 3:18 says, grow in grace and in the knowledge of the Lord. So if we're going to grow, that means we got to pivot, that we can't stay right where we are and expect to get anywhere, to go forward in any tangible way. So it's important for us to learn the importance of preparing to pivot in our lives, to pivot in our homes, to pivot in our circumstances. And when we're stuck and we cannot pivot, then we find ourselves in a place where our lack of pivot often means that we are not progressing in life. We say we want a lot of things, but if we get stuck right where we are, we haven't learned to pivot. Things change. We got to be changeable with those things and not lose sight of who we are, not lose sight of whose we are, not lose sight of our goals. There's going to be things that change in our lives. And we can't get so uh, frustrated by the change that we weren't expecting that we find ourselves sitting down right where we are. I can't move because I don't like where things are. Where there's going to be things we don't like. There are going to be situations that we don't want to happen in our lives. And there's going to be times when we are trying to move forward and there are those who are pulling us back because they're not ready for our pivot. But pivot anyway. Because if they are not ready for the pivot, if they can't move as you move, then that probably means that they're no longer a part of your journey. And we should know it by now. But we have tried to hold on to those things we felt like we could control. COVID was something we couldn't control. So we kind of clamped down on those things we thought we could. But pivoting means that we have to not only do it in our work life or in how we move around. We've learned how to do some things, but then we want to go backward to what was because it looks like things are better. And the truth of the matter is backward is not somewhere we're headed. Anytime we're going backwards, that means we're not going where? Forward. Forward is important for our lives. So my encouragement to us today and my word to us and to myself and to everyone else who may hear this at whatever time, prepare to pivot. It may not come how you want it to. It may come in marvelous ways that you would have missed if you were stuck in the place you'd been. No, Rochelle, we cannot get comfortable. And we've got to learn the importance of not being so comfortable that we miss the blessings of the pivot. There are blessings in the pivot. It may not feel that way when the pivot is happening because we're not exactly sure which direction we're pivoting in. But then when we see and keep our eyes on the goal, I'm still on that basketball thing, when we can keep our eye on what's next and we can make the pass to whatever is next in our lives, then we set up the goal. We set ourselves up for the goal, whether it's a layup or an alley-oop or whether it's a 3-point because someone's in that corner and that they're going to be able to shoot the ball and it goes in the hoop. Our lives have to pivot with our eye on the prize. So go forth today. Know that God has placed you where you are for a purpose. And that in the midst of that, God is going to require of us some pivoting. But the one thing we can be sure of, that we do not pivot alone. And so that's the blessing in this, that we don't pivot alone. That every time we have to make the turn, guess what? We've got an assist right there with us. Always. Knowing that whatever we are poised to do, whatever we are going to do in our lives, that when we walk with God, God never leaves us even when the pivot is in full effect. So go forth today. Go forth in your life. Prepare for the pivot. It's coming. It's coming again and again and again, because in order for us to reach the goal, we've got to have our feet on the ground, but not so planted that we can't make the shifts so that we can reach the goals and be the best us we can be. God bless you. Heaven smile on you. Prepare for the pivot and be encouraged. I'll see you soon.